we're back. Sorry for the slight technical glitch. Once again,
False start.
false start. Yeah, you didn't hear me.
Excellent.
It was a and we're back. Sorry for the
beautiful,
slight technical
beautiful
glitch.
intro.
Once again,
False.
that we
Very
didn't.
professional.
Just
Yeah, it was
nailed
great.
it.
Yeah, it was beautiful.
Killed it.
But this is the bad intro now. Hi, we're back. This is Table 13. This is
intro.
Rational Radio. Over here to the, I guess, like, what, left of me, I suppose, is Cortex. I don't know. Right from the screen, because it's backwards.
Is
Right.
not the
And then
person
over
that
there,
is.
that's Kyle.
Yeah.
And then down here,
Hi.
that's Mr. E, or aka Eric, as he's known in the meat space. Today, we're
That's
talking about
occasionally.
feats, and not the ones that toes, or the podiatrist kind of feat. This is the 5e feat, where you can replace a ability score increase with one of these handy dandy little ability things. Now, as someone who's hardly ever been a player, I am I don't know, I have not delved a lot into feats. In fact, every time a ability score increase comes up, I usually just take it, because it's way easier than delving, into these 12 pages in the back of the book. But in the last couple of days, I've been doing some research about feats, and holy crap, I was a dum-dum, because this is where all the really cool stuff is with characters. So, to kind of get into it, what are feats, guys? Tell me, what are feats?
Yeah. Let's start with Cortex here.
All right. A feat represents a talent or an area of expertise that gives a character special capabilities. It embodies training, experience, and abilities beyond what a class provides.
Just become better.
All the time.
Just better than all the other plebs who
then-
take the ASI increase.
Kyle,
Exactly.
You got anything? Or yeah, I was gonna say anything to add or modify.
So what I would like to add, and in my own words, what I really like about feats, because with 5th edition you're already, it's compared to other systems, character creation is pretty quick, and there are a lot of familiar builds. There, the Goliath barbarian, the dwarf fighter, yada yada yada. What 5th edition does with its feats is it gives an extra bit of flair and personality to, like, if two people were playing Goliath barbarians, one could be a tavern brawler, while one could take like heavy armor master, whatever. It takes two identical builds and lets them shine at the same time, and that's what I like about feats.
You know what I also find really interesting about some of these feats is the feats themselves give you a ability score increase. So it's
Some
like,
do, yes.
Usually it's
Why?
like you get a +1.
Yeah,
Because so as I do, feats are a great way, like I think like Kyle's saying here, to like sort of diversify your character from the standard. I think that it's also, like that ability score increase is really tempting sometimes too, because getting your main stat up to 20, if you're a rogue, getting a 20 dex and having +5 on everything is really nice. But yeah, like feats, you can get other interesting things happening. Sort of, I suppose.
Yeah, to jump in on what E's saying, doing point buy or standard array, you're not starting with the potential that you could with rolling stats. So sometimes even some people, most of that argue for it up to level 12. You just take the ASIs to get your stats where you want them, and then the feats are to increase upon that.
I've heard that meta as well, and it's hard to argue with, honestly, when you get down to it sometimes, since you just do roll dice a lot, and getting bigger numbers on dice is important, and getting that +2 helps a lot. But I think you can get like a ton of like character, I guess, out of your character by you're going for something that isn't just like a bigger bonus on a roll, and giving your character the ability to mimic patterns of speech really
Right.
effectively, or some other strange concept. It is like a thing, though. It's a stumbling block of like another bunch of stuff that you got to look at, and if you don't pick one that's really mechanically strong, it can feel like it's a waste in comparison sometimes. So it is like more to kind of dig into sometimes, I think. But I usually, if I do generally go for like one stat at least at 20 before I start taking feats, but unless there's something really good for a certain character, I suppose.
I just
I'm not sure.
so some of these like take athlete for example, is if you're a fighter, let's say, who gets a ASI or a feat every other level, why would
chunk.
you? Because also when you're a fighter, your main stats are going to be strength and dexterity, or like strength and constitution. So why wouldn't you just take athlete and at that very first time instead of taking the SI, because you get a strength or dexterity increase to 1 and you get the prone feat, the when you're prone, standing only uses 5 feet of movement and climbing doesn't cost you extra movement. It just seems like you get the ability score increase and more things on top of it.
Well, I think
Mm-hmm.
there are times where that is probably the preferable option. Like let's say you had a strength of 17, right?
Yeah,
I
if you
mean,
have an
if
odd
you
strength,
Sure.
yeah,
they
an
might
odd
Yeah.
do it.
number, sure, go for the feat first because you're going to get the bonus anyway, or at least the increase to the next tier with the die. Um, but it could be a tough decision to make when like you're sitting at a 16 or an 18. You know.
Yeah, because
Yeah,
that +1 ASI isn't going to get you anything.
Right.
right. Effectively,
Yeah,
at
no bonus
that
anywhere.
level, and then you're also gonna have to get another +1 before that ever amounts to an actual in-game
Right.
bonus.
Now,
If you start from an even number, but if you start from an odd number, it's like really, really good.
Right.
Hmm.
Now that said, as a fighter, that's probably not as big of an issue. Like you said, every other level you're getting the option to do this. Sure, this time this level 4, or I think it might be 4 or 6. I forget which one. I think it's 6, the first one.
Yeah, I think you go
Okay,
4 and
it
then
might be
6
4.
and
Then
then
something.
8
Oh yeah,
and
4.
then
Yeah.
something. Yeah, it's like every other level for a
But yeah,
chunk in
when you
there.
have that the option to increase more frequently than others, and a +1 here probably isn't that big deal.
Yeah, I would agree with that as well. You can get to just as a mechanically effective character without necessarily having a 20 in your decks. And I think also, yeah, sort of like what Bags is mentioning here in chat, there are a lot of feats that, like athlete, I think that benefit is like very strong at level 1 uh, comparatively, whereas later on down the road, getting climbing speed or an extra jump distance might not be as useful. And like standing up from prone is always going to be nice, I
Yeah.
think. But climbing, that when people have spells to burn and stuff, I think that yeah, some of these things are much more useful early on, and they still can like lead to the way you play your character, which is very important. But like it, yeah, some things like yeah, I think looking at athlete, that's one that like it's very nice very early, and yeah, it's basically tier 2 where flying becomes more common and accessible. Um, it stops being like an amazing thing, but yeah, level 1 climbing speed and jump from prone and extra jump speed without running, and like that's really good stuff. I don't know. Mobility is always nice too.
Yeah.
I got to say the one side I feel like we're missing is the actual skill proficiencies or setting things better. I think a lot of feats give you the opportunity to gain proficiencies and skills that you maybe find in the campaign that you're using more, and then not only does that feat fit your character for what's going on, but it doesn't just like you just pick something at random and or not at random, but something that's kind of unrelated to what's going on. And now I can do this, and I feel
Right.
like campaign specific feats or Kyle mentioned to me the other day, um, having the ability to gain a feat outside of the level can be possible with your GM, where then you kind of can lean to those ASIs because those really show that you're improving in things that you're doing.
Right.
Whereas you could take a feat because you've been speculating on some idea, where now I have a crossbow and I'm really good at using it now. Don't ask me why, but I can.
So
It's like
yeah, the
that's interesting.
the feats and how you gain them, and including like skill proficiencies in 5e, does feel a little bit. I mean, honestly, leveling sometimes feels weird because you like walk into a cave and then you walk out with a bunch of new abilities. And
Yeah, it's that like week of hell kind of thing where
right,
all of
yeah,
a sudden,
exactly.
your characters walk out like,
Yeah,
slowly from explosions and stuff when they were barely able to hold their swords straight walking in, and it's like,
just
what,
days ago. Yeah.
what
So,
happened? But
hey, we can. So we're gonna spend this time talking about like feats, or like what feats do in 5e that other um uh, uh, mechanical systems do instead. And one of the things that I just wanted to add to the conversation is like feats in 5e are analogous to the kind of abilities and spells and even like magical items I used to give out to players when I played Hero System, where the system was so much more modular that I could like build an ability and see the point cost of that ability and then compare it to their character and then see how much more how many more points that would increase their character by in that system, which allowed me to like build things like feats that were specifically tailored to my campaign and specifically tailored to like the things that my players had done, and that is how I advanced players. So it does seem strange. I wanted to talk to you guys about that. Like, how do you explain feats in the 5e system in your campaigns, or explain even like leveling? But this is feats, so we should keep in the feat conversation. Down on the
uh,
ground where the feats are.
I
Ooh.
I think that um, coming from 3.5, where feats really were a lot more prerequisite heavy, and they had a lot more of a specific function that was opening up combat abilities or combat maneuvers and stuff like that. I think 5e tried to keep kind of true to that, but also keep it broad, which is kind of 5e's theme of allow a lot of things to fit into kind of what you want. But I think it's something that, seeing a pattern they might even be moving away from, and just because I kind of do like that idea where you can build something specific to your character, where 3.5 was very heavy in that. I have a Warforged that's taking very much combat brute and all this sort of stuff to just use a two-handed weapon until the thing is squish. I think that 5e is kind of giving that generalization, um, at the same time, but I kind of feel that they're moving away from it.
I think you're on the right track there. It's like they wanted to keep to that concept which existed in 5e of feats being a thing, but they didn't really like the way. To me, it seems that they didn't really enjoy the way uh, players had to interact with that material, because there was so much. It was so dense, and there were so many ways for things to interact, and these like trees that you had to go down to
Mm-hmm.
do like anything. um I think they were, it's part of the whole move that they made to streamline the system. And it was always, I remember looking at 5e and being like, wow, it's either feats or ability score increases, and like they're tied to your class level instead of your character level, like weird. And so they did some stuff like that, but I think it's just they're supposed to be special features, kind of like what you, yeah, like you're talking about seeing them as, Kyron. I think is these just sort of little packages of abilities that give you little, extra tricks essentially. um, that they didn't want to totally break things, but I do think that they're individually more powerful than feats tended to be in 3.5 across the board. Anyway, the average feat, they have like a lot in them.
Yeah, you're gonna have that. I mean, because of the, like Cortex said earlier, with the fifth edition, the idea behind fifth edition of consolidating and broadening out certain things. Because like with Pathfinder 3.5, I mean, trying to find, first of all, the number of feats that you had at your disposal, and then trying to figure out the prerequisite feats you need for the feat that you really want, it can get really complicated. And so I think they did a great job, fifth edition, with providing a lot of the same material, or at least the same concepts, and keeping them in simpler, broader packages. But at the same time, throwing a little bit of flavor onto it too. I mean, because there's a lot of role play potential in a lot of these feats too.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas, I mean, look at a feat in Pathfinder like power attack, right?
Right.
Basically all it tells you, yeah, you get a +10 to damage, right? But here in a great weapon master it gives you a little bit more, and then
Right.
there's some that have absolutely no combat mechanical value at all that are still to a role play centric party or a party that does a lot of social encounters or non-combat encounters that are flavorful and provide inspiration for a player to take their character in a certain direction.
Yeah.
And
Inspiring leader. I mean, a great one.
yeah,
Right? Yeah, that's a really good one.
Yeah, some like party or like campaign affecting kind of stuff, like affects the rest of the party and potentially. But I think like, so you were kind of talking about like what are some other systems and what do they do as well, and like I think anyway, if I remember things at all, but but I think that I love, like, I grew up on 3.5, that whole system, that puzzle of putting, that's very much like Pathfinder, that's of putting together like a functional character that also does the cool things that you want, was super cool and appealed to me a lot when I was younger. Now I feel it's maybe not quite as awesome, but I do think that my favorite system for managing this stuff is another D20, or at least of the D20 systems anyway. My favorite for sure is the Star Wars Saga Edition system. They have feats, but they also have these things called talents, which you get. It's basically every other level you're getting one or the other, and so they're smaller. They don't do quite as much individually, and the structure is very much the same as a 3.5, where you've got like you got to get quick draw before you can get whatever other melee related feats, but it's a little less interdependent, and there's a lot more versatility and tricks, and sort of just like, oh, you can make a deception check to move through an opponent's square without provoking an attack of opportunity instead of an acrobatics check or something, and like or you can make this deception check to produce this action if you beat their wisdom defense or whatever it is, and so it's more modular. And it's just dense as hell. The system's like out of print now. It's a pre-Disney Star Wars product, so they just put it out and went with something else after it. But it's a shame because it's either right before Perkins went into 4th edition or right after. But it's a system that he made, and it's like really good. It's a great application of like the D20, like D&D system to a modern like setting. It works very well. They implement a lot of little changes that help a lot. But before I make this whole thing about that system, well, I guess yeah.
No, I think Kyle, you kind of played us into talking about each of these feats individually. And at least we're going to talk about the ones that are in the player's handbook, because if you go out into the larger scope of things, Player's Handbook and Xanathar's Guide, I think, are two good resources to begin a feat discussion. But there are more resources, and there are even the homebrewed or unearthed arcana feats that get really crazy. I mean, that might be an episode in itself, is like looking up crazy homebrew feats and being like, feats. This would break the game in this way. This is. Yeah, exactly. Because they're just like the races that we looked at in that one episode with the glumps or the gloomps or whatever they were called.
Like some of them are just
some of them are just crazy. But in the Player's Handbook, at least, and in Xanathar's Guide, they're a little bit less crazy. There is a little bit of order to it. Yes, it's not quite as just wild. So the very beginning, I think, is alert, right? That's the very alphabetical. Actor, all right? The way at the top. I gotta open that list because I just got the Player's Handbook in front of me. Actor, there we go.
Player's Handbook has them out of alphabetical order.
Yeah, it does.
Does it really?
Yeah, it's alert, then athlete, then actor.
Why?
Yep, that doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
I'm looking at it.
Yep. That doesn't make any sense. So not following the Player's Handbook alphabetical, which is they alphabetized it on the first one, and they just kind of went, whatever, it's alphabetized now. Which is not how
kind of group A's together. That's not how the alphabet works.
No. So the first one is actor.
We're gonna move past that.
+1 in charisma, advantage on deception and performance checks, mimic this, and you can mimic the speech of a person or the sounds made by a creature. Basically, turns you into a kenku that doesn't have to communicate that
So
way.
it is only advantage on those checks when trying to pass yourself off as a different person.
Interesting.
It
Okay.
does say, in what I'm reading here anyway, I guess, which limits that boon just a touch. It's not just every time you lie, which is, I think, I don't know, probably a good thing for
Yeah.
most parties. But I guess, like, I don't know.
I don't know. You could argue that
Taking a feat, so
Yeah.
it's a lot. If you look at the actual mechanical impact here, in like, it's just skill checks. That's what you're getting to be good at here. So if getting really good at skill checks can break your game, then that problem is not with the
Right,
skill
yeah.
check. I don't think. But sorry, go ahead, Kyle.
In my opinion, the actor feat is the perfect feat of choice for a player looking to play like a master of disguise, a roguish spy who's trying to break into places and fool people and pretend to be diplomats and stuff like that. So, yeah, for those types of characters, actor is a fantastic choice.
A face, yeah, any front man type party member who's not afraid probably to go on the, like, if you're impersonating people, it's not going to be the paladin probably who's
Right.
taking actor, if that's your paladin anyway. But like, yeah, so I think the charlatan sort of con man aspect of actor makes for a really fun feat. I think it's like really great in role playing situations, and it gives your character this sort of, like, Bugs Bunny ability to, like, just put on a disguise and have everybody buy it, which is that's a situation you can use to make for a really funny situation. It's like, you had to cobble together this disguise out of just random stuff, but it looks all right.
Looks
Well
pretty
done.
good.
So
And you sound
right.
exactly like a
And
person
you
would
can
sound like that.
right,
Yeah.
and you've even got his mannerisms and that, like, kind of hand gesture he does when
Yep.
he talks or something.
Sure,
But
you can put on the black robe and infiltrate the death cult.
Absolutely. Go for
absolutely.
it. And like, and then you're just walking around in a disguise. You got your Groucho glasses
Just
on.
it, yes.
You've made it inside, but now what? And so I like actor a lot, and I think it's maybe not a very powerful feat.
So we're gonna rate
but
these.
It's a fun one.
Out of 5
Are we
corn
gonna rate
cobs.
them?
Yeah, out of 5 corn cobs.
Out of 5 corn cobs.
Yep.
Okay.
So I think
Cortex,
actors.
do you have anything big to say?
Oh yeah.
On actor here before we try and
in my
give it some tops?
opinion, it's the one feat that really breaks the fourth wall, because you're an actor taking an actor feat. I mean, that's all. I do like it. It does allow a character that's building for that kind of thing. I want to infiltrate. I want to do that sort of stuff. It is that specialization that it gives you skills, which is kind of what I was saying earlier, where it's advancing your ability to use different skills and more skills. If you kind of like, I feel like a lot of these are you're banking on taking that feat and kind of choosing other skills at the beginning to have to be your proficiencies.
I think that makes some sense.
So what would you give it out of 5 corn cobs?
Corn cobs,
I would definitely give it a 3 corn cob.
That's what I wrote down too. Yep, 3 out of 5 corn cobs.
You got to write all these down.
I am. Don't worry.
Everybody's cobs. Okay, good. So Kyle, how many corn cobs?
Well,
I love this system.
I'm gonna have to go with 3 as well. It's a good feat. Is an all rounder. But I rate it. You know what? Actually, I'm gonna rate it a 4.
Ooh, okay.
And here's why. Not every party needs a face, but there are plenty of parties that do. I mean, it's always easier to ask for things nicely in a D&D game than to take it by force. Sometimes when you ask the DM nicely, you get things, right? And to put on top of that, when as a DM, when you see a player take certain feats, you get an insight into how they want to play their character, and you go, all right, so he took the active feat. These are the kind of things he's gonna. These are opportunities I can present to the player where they go, I can use my feet for that, and it makes him feel better. So any feat that gives me that option to build stuff for a player, I rate it higher. So I give it
That's
4.
fair. I am going to go with 2 because it has
Oh,
a
okay.
subdued mechanical impact. There isn't like a major, like on paper, obvious boon. It is totally dependent on the creativity of the player to be useful, which while, that gives you a lot of like top end, I think it's, maybe not as universally useful for like everybody who takes it. And then again, it's like it's that sort of small niche of character types that it really fits very well for. So I'll rate it a little lower.
Well, that helpfully averages out to three out of 5
That's what
corn
you're
cobs.
welcome.
So
Yeah.
thank you for that. Really nice.
You're not gonna put totals because I was planning on doing decimals later.
Oh,
Oh,
my
Jesus.
The system.
So,
It's
the
nature bloom.
next feat that we are going to corn cob is alert. +5 to initiative. You cannot be surprised, and creatures you don't see gain advantage on attack rolls against you. This is a really
No.
good feat.
So creatures who you don't see don't gain advantage.
Oh, and creatures
on
you
attack
don't
rolls.
see don't gain advantage on attack rolls against you.
Yeah.
Yes, I
It's
said that backwards.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's all good. But
Real
yeah,
good.
alerts real good.
It's nice.
And
The
yeah,
me
I
first
guess we
feat.
do this
Mhm.
sort of as speaking of which, as we're all just talking about, let's go with this system here. Start with Cortex, go around the clock
Around the
again.
circle. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I'd give it 5 corn cobs. Going first is so impactful, especially it's a turn-based game. Going first is never a disadvantage.
Right.
Just being able to delay your action, hold your action for something. Alert really is, it's good no matter who you are, and then especially good when you're any sort of rogue, ranger, fighter, anyone that needs to set that tone right away. It's a good way to cripple your enemy really quickly.
For sure. 5. Strong rating right out of the gate there. So
Yeah, I mean, I don't really have a whole lot to build on to that. I agree with everything Cortex said. It is a great feat all around, and yeah, I mean, 5.
like since
Ah,
we've
Right.
abandoned
the
circle.
rotation.
Oh,
chaos.
Yeah, I'm actually gonna give it a 4 corn cobs out of 5. And I'm gonna give it a 4 corn cobs out of 5 because it is only I don't know really how to put this in the way, like, if your character sucks, going first isn't really going to be an advantage. And so if your character sucks, you should get a feat that'll make your character more effective in combat before you get this feat. But that's only if you're playing a bard who is taking all like cantrip attacks and no like buff spells, and you're
Well, hang
grumpy
on.
that your combat isn't working very well.
I have a question then.
Sure.
Wouldn't it be the most advantageous to go first to GTFO and do it, because then they don't have the opportunity.
I
If
was
you
gonna
get
say,
surprised, well, you can't
it's-
be surprised.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's
That's a big
expeditious
thing if you
retreat.
suck.
I'm
Yeah.
gone. I'm gone.
And then not being able to be owned by invisible people or whatever is all these things do help you if you're even if your character isn't strong itself. I think that going higher in the initiative order does give you flexibility, and just because of the way combat is set up, it does benefit everybody a bit. I think if you can spend your turn before anybody gets a chance to attack you to go and find full cover,
Mhm.
even if you're garbage, like that helps a ton. So even if you're not using it to hurt the enemies, or you can use yourself to get it out. But it's by that same token, it is a purely combat like feat.
Right.
Disagree.
Okay, fair enough.
The party scout, the rogue who
Yeah.
sneaks ahead to look around.
I guess the specific stuff that it lists is their only combat mechanic
They are
features,
only
I
combat
suppose.
mechanic, I
That's what
agree.
I meant by that. Yeah.
I'm not going to change my vote. It's still 4.
No. Still
I
4 out of
tried.
5.
Petitioned. I
think I would also
filibustered.
go with. I will go with 4 out of 5 as well.
Yeah.
With a not that it is not a very strong feat. I think is one of the stronger feats. But it's since it's also a little limited in the group of people that it's really like prime good for. Like the best. It's never bad to go higher in
Right.
initiative, but there are often going to be other feats that might be better for your particular character
Right.
at that time. Not that you wouldn't still benefit here, but
Yeah.
I think it's maybe like it's I don't feel that it has quite as much like narrative weight either, which is something I like to value as well. You want like a little bit of both, I guess.
So that brings us to 4.5 out of 5, which
You're
is
right. Decimals did come in.
pretty
this.
good. Yep. Oh, we're doing it.
I know, so I was gonna do like
Complexity.
2 1/3 corn cobs just to throw off the
Right.
math.
All right, I could do 4.5 out of 5 corn cobs, just to add, overs
I like
on.
to think that it's like halfway like crumpled up. It's not like just cut in half. It's like
No.
half the corn's gone. In the corn cob. Anyway, sorry.
Right.
Um,
So, and we're
Athlete's the
all
next
so
feat.
far we've stayed within 1 corn cob of each other though, so we're at least in agreement that good feats are good. Athlete +1 in strength or dex. You can stand up and by only using from prone with only using 5 feet of your movement. Climbing takes no extra movement, and you can jump your long jump with only a 5 feet run instead of a 10-foot run. Just, that's pretty good. What you think, Cortex?
I would give this one a 3, if not a 2.5.
Okay.
I feel like taking the ASI over this one helps you not get knocked down. Helps you to make those checks, whether you can make them faster or not. The extra movement is all right if you're in that situation, but I feel that using athlete would happen less than the actual ASI increase would give you. That's just my opinion on it. I can be wrong, and I could see the argument against it too. But I feel that if you're taking athlete, you're already kind of athletic, and I don't like that it doesn't give you a proficiency in athletics.
Yes.
Yeah,
I
it
think
doesn't make
also,
sense.
if
That
you
doesn't
have
make sense either.
proficiency, you double your proficiency bonus or something. Like I think
Yeah.
that would have been a small add that they could have thrown in, which wouldn't break the skill necessarily. Although actually no, athletics is what you grapple with.
Pointing
maybe
that
that
out
is a
really
problem.
bothers me now. I did not notice that. Yeah,
I'm
like
sorry.
it's athlete in the name, and it doesn't give you the athletic skill.
If it wasn't the thing that you grappled with, I think they would have.
Okay.
But that's what you grab people with, and if you have that, then anybody. I don't know. Why not?
Why not?
I don't know.
Yeah, like
Is
it's
it
a feat.
okay?
But come on, there's
Yeah,
feats that
it's a
give you
feat.
advantage on
Right.
grappling. So like, come on,
Yeah.
come
So
on.
I gotta ask you, E, is it only in 3.5 where you can there's something where you can use acrobatics for grappling instead of athletics, but
Like
that
to
it might
grab
be.
people.
Yeah, it was for both. For a
Um,
grapple check, you could choose to use athletics or
Yeah,
acrobatics.
well, you do that in fifth edition. I guess if someone
You
tries
can
to grapple
avoid it.
you,
Yeah.
you can
Right.
use athletics or acrobatics.
It's got to be a
contest.
3.5 feet that allows you to
That
initiate it with
might be a
acrobatics.
thing.
Then
Yeah, I wouldn't be shocked. That'd be broken. I mean, I guess it's no more broken than. Oh, and I guess and you also had just if you were putting ranks into stuff in 3.5, it was a whole different system.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's not. I don't know. I do think that maybe that giving every barbarian who takes Clem, I took athlete, and I think it's a cool feat for him. But like, if he had also gotten expertise with athlete out of it, or with athletics out of it, that would be like a really powerful feat for him. I feel like, and it wouldn't be as strong down the road, but grapple's always really good, and it just abuses the action economy in a really like messed up way sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, athlete doesn't really give you anything to grapple.
Right.
The 2 in the ASI would.
Yeah,
Right, exactly. So no, I don't think you're wrong. I do think that athlete makes you. If it include, I was initially of the opinion that adding the proficiency isn't a huge deal. I'm sort of backing away from that. I don't think it would
They
it would
should have
completely
named
break the
it
feat.
something different, though.
I could give you that. Yeah,
Come on.
there's some
So
sort of.
I'm gonna
Sorry.
rate it a 3 out of 5 as well, just because it does at least give you 1 point in the ability score and the movement, extra movement. If you're creative with your movement in combat, is like the climbing kind of thing. I've seen some role players use that really creatively with like things like trees and sides of buildings and stuff. I haven't seen someone use the long jump, but again, I could see places where that would be really handy. Uh, so I'm going to give it a 3 out of 5.
Tiger Barbarian, for example.
Right?
Or whatever, Anyway, sorry. Go ahead.
Kyle.
Yeah, it is a strong early feat. Like if you were a variant human, or or if you something to get a level at first level, yeah, it's a good feat to have early on. You're right, it does wane off, especially if you get into the second and third tier of play. But for me personally, the climbing is it's very situational, but in the right hands with a creative player is phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
Same with it really depends on the DM side of things with the long jump or how you build your combat encounters, how interactive the environments are. For me, the thing I take out of this feat and why I would even ever consider it is the standing up from prone only using 5 feet of movement. I can see a lot of uses out of that, especially if you take it with a rogue or someone who can you can dive into a bush and hide, and drop prone, get up, attack, and still get out of it.
Yeah.
But it's still not that strong of a feat. I'd have to go with a 3 out of 5.
All right.
All right. I am a big fan of it. So, probably by unfairly so, because like climbing early game, I think any sort of extra movement stuff that can be actually, I don't know. I think that can be a really big deal. If everyone else has to climb at half speed, you can break stuff. But and then the jumping shit, you can most encounters that DMs don't plan for the inclusion of height and stuff. You can
Right.
get some funny things to happen if you start working in 3 dimensions. But the big thing is, like you were saying, the best part about it is only spending 5 feet to stand up, because half your movement, if you're a movement speed based character,
like a monk,
or a barbarian later level, anything that is about going more than 30 feet per turn, that's huge. That's a ton of loss. If you're losing 35 feet or something just to stand up, it feels really silly sometimes. Whereas you could just spend 5 here and then have most of your, I don't know, that's a really high level monk or something.
And if you take certain feats in the back here, you can spend 5 feet, get up from prone, and then just book it straight up a cliff. Because I love the idea of someone making it up a climbing wall, like a 50-foot climbing wall in 6 seconds, because they have mobility and athlete, and they're just geez,
and they just run up the handholds or whatever.
Parkour.
Parkour.
Like those old Bruce Lee movies where he's just jumping on the top of the treetop. That's kind of what I imagine. So what are you going to give it, Mystery? How many corn cobs?
I will give it a solid 2, because it's fairly limited to the people that it's very beneficial to as well.
So
out of 5.
He said he's
I love it,
unfairly
but
advantaged
it's not a very strong.
below.
That's why I'm trying to rate it lower than I would have normally, because I want to say 5, because I have it on Clem. I wouldn't have taken it if I don't love the game.
2.75 out of 5.
Nice.
Corn cobs.
Good.
So we're
Can't make it simple.
Nope, no, not at all. This average list is going to be screwed up. There's going to be a few decimal points after the, a few decimal points after the decimal. All right, the next one.
Bountiful luck.
Bountiful luck. You can let an ally.
We can read off what it is.
Yeah. You can let an ally within 30 feet of you re-roll a 1 on a d20. I think you can only do that once per long rest.
It is, yeah, and you can't. You can use your reaction to let them re-roll the die. The ally must use the new roll. When you use this ability, you can't use your lucky racial trait before the end of your next turn. I don't know that it's limited. I think it's every time you roll a one, or anyone within 30 feet of you rolls a 1.
Oh, halflings.
Wow.
Right?
Wow.
That's crazy.
As long as you have your reaction up to
Yep.
spend, and you
can
do
just
give
do
up
it.
your reaction, but
Oh, this is a halfling
to give somebody a
exquisite, by the
reroll,
way.
yeah, it is. Yeah, this is halfling only feat. Man, I misread that the first time. I thought it was a once per long rest.
No, wow.
Wild. So
That's
starting
crazy.
with cortex, corncobs.
How many corncobs?
I don't want to give it any
None.
because I am
Unrated.
very biased against both this and a later feat we'll talk about luck because it's already a game where you've rolled the dice. At some point, I have.
We will not get to lucky.
Yeah,
down the
I
line
have a
tonight.
very notable player in my past that would use luck to get out of a lot of things, and because of how we were playing, it didn't really ever run out. It pretty much essentially kept him from failing, and I think the ability to fail really shows how you play your character and who your character is. Because if you don't ever fail, it's that's not fun anymore. If you're just gonna succeed at everything, then
Right.
We don't learn from our successes.
yeah,
We learn from our failures.
exactly. And why do we get back up, Master Bruce?
Oh man, what a perfect reference for the athlete feat from earlier. I get knocked down,
Hey,
but I
yo.
get up again.
And it only cost me 5 feet of movement.
Damn. We missed out. So it was there. It was right on the table waiting. Sorry, leg. Yeah,
Oh, so yeah,
Whatever.
Cortex
Going
0
around
out
in
of
circles.
5
0?
because broken.
No, it's like non-voting. I think he
Okay.
abstained.
Well, we said 0 to 5
Yeah,
corn
Okay,
cobs.
so
you're not
no
giving
corn
it any.
cobs.
So you are 0.
Oh
Alright.
wait,
That
you
is
can't
okay.
divide by 0. I guess.
I'll
No,
let you divide by
Oh,
0.
it doesn't
counts
add.
as 0.
No,
You just
yeah.
add
Yeah,
them
we
up
add.
and then divide by 4
Right.
still, so you just count as a...
Yep.
That's math.
That's
math.
maths.
So I'm gonna give this one. God, I'm gonna give it a 4 out of 5 because holy crap, is that powerful?
It's really strong.
Really strong.
It's really
It is
strong.
only attached to halflings, and it does kind of just shove the halfling into the leprechaun role. Because like if
Right.
you take this and you're a lucky halfling, and then you take the lucky feat on top of this, you're just a freaking leprechaun. You just like running around
Yeah.
giving people gold coins and granting wishes. Yep. And it just on top
4
of
out
that,
of 5.
lucky halfling divination wizard, and then you can just play the game by yourself. The DM just has to hand you his notes, and then you can just run the game. So I'm gonna give it a 4 out of 5.
4 out of
Kyle?
5. Kyle? Yeah.
I'm gonna go 5 out of 5.
5 out of 5.
The reason I say this is the what I value most from my games is obviously the storytelling and the twists of fate and the surprises that come along the way. And there's nothing better than, especially in late game when things are starting to get serious, and then a player drops dead and they have to make that roll, and they roll a 1, and the one halfling in the party who's never really been able to do much of anything goes, "Ha ha!
You're not dead now."
and just turn fate on its head. I as far as the idea of the abuse of it, yeah, it could be. I mean, you get to go with the bad, but for the potential that it provides in that regard, and just for how powerful it is to begin with, I give it 5.
All right, 5 out of 5.
I gotta, I'm gonna say the only reason I don't give it a 5 is because it's gonna be, I feel it's frequently abused, so I'll give it a 4. I do think that there is a way to use the lucky feats without it being really lame.
I agree.
I do think that that a lot of the times they're taking it so that the mechanic of never taking the result of a 1 is kind of just avoided entirely. So there's whatever, but I mean it's a feat that's in the game that exists because otherwise there's a 5% chance when you're doing stuff that, like, I don't know, yeah. So there's an argument for it. I think that it's not just like totally off type too. Like I think you can explain a lot of the things without it being just utterly ridiculous and just like, hey, heads up, and like, now they're suddenly not failing the save or something. But like it gets a lot weirder than that a lot of other times. So I think it's a very, very, very strong feat, though, if you can just spend your reaction to give somebody else a +1. And realistically, you only get one reaction per turn, and you can't use your lucky feat until the end of your next turn. So
You're only re-rolling ones every 6 seconds. No worries.
No problem.
yeah, but how often do ones get rolled, though? That's the thing. So you're not going to be able to get one every turn or anything.
No.
It's going to happen every once in a while.
I think I'd up my corncobs if a player used it on one of my NPCs that rolled a 1.
There you go.
Then I'd be for it.
That's
So,
fair.
Never happen.
As it stands right now, the average for Bountiful Luck is 3.25 out of 5 corncobs. So not too bad, not
Bringing
terrible,
that average down.
but yeah, that 0 out of 5 really brought the average down. All
I
right,
prefaced it with me being biased.
that's fine. I mean, bias is allowed here in this round table.
Mm-hmm.
All right, next is Charger. This is just the quick and dirty of it. As part of the dash action, you can make a melee attack with a +5 bonus if you move at least 10 feet before.
To the damage.
Yes, +5 to the damage. Not to the hit, but to the damage. So what do you think, Cortex? You basically become a Minotaur.
Yeah, I spoke of my Warforged earlier. He is definitely a charge bull rush combo kind of character, and I feel Charger is the replacement to not having charge be an attack anymore because you don't have the plus to the bonuses and the damage and such like that. So I do like it. If you're that kind of character where you are doing that and then you're getting a +5 to the attack's damage roll, it helps. But at the same time, you're missing out a lot of the stuff like Bull Rush. You could knock people down with it, and you had a lot of feats that lined up after Charge because Charge was like an intro feat, like he was saying, that tabled out. It had a lot more function in 3.5. In 5, if you're charging, you're the barbarian, you're the fighter. I don't think everyone's going to use this. I'd probably give it a 3 because it is very specific. And having used the tree that 3.5 created for it, I feel that this doesn't exactly do it justice. But
Right.
that's my opinion.
What's how many corncobs?
Trace.
Trace.
Yeah, 3.
Corncobs. 3 to 5 corncobs. So I'm probably gonna go around that too. I thought of a really interesting build that you could do with a rogue because you can use the dash action as a bonus action, and so it functionally gives you another attack on your bonus action that you can still move with. Correct? So if I'm not mistaken, you could do your full movement.
The way that's worded is it says when you use your action to dash. So you could probably ticky-tacky wise say that technically if you use your bonus action to dash that you don't qualify to use
it actually
Charger.
says it right there in the feat. The Charger is a bonus action.
No, the attack that comes after the dash is a bonus action, right? But the action to dash
is
like when it leads in by it's
right.
like so so you could say, at least, I'm not sure that that's intended or whatever, but that the rogue wouldn't qualify. But then the issue is that if you've taken your bonus action to dash, you don't have a bonus action remaining to use that extra melee attack with either. So I think it's anyway.
I'm gonna drop
it's not
my corncob rating down to 2 out of 5 corncobs because you can't use interaction, and it does kind of force you into doing like the big bull rushy character rather than the sing sing sing. Like I was thinking like a Genji rush back and forth across the character, but that's won't be happening by rules as written. So Kyle, what do you think?
I'm gonna go with a 3, because this is a feat for your hulking barbarian or your battle master fighter. You're talking about bull rush and trip attacks. That combines with Charger wonderfully. Get up in there, do some damage, and then, especially with Battle Master, trip them up, knock them to the ground, and wait for everybody else to come around. Fantastic feat for a character like that. But it is very situational, and because of that, 3 out of 5.
3 out of 5.
I think it's a purely combat feat that's not very good. I'm gonna say 2 out of 5
2 out of 5.
because I do like the aesthetic of being able to run around and bash folks, but I think that there are other ways that don't require 4 levels in a class, which is what it takes to get to an ASI
Right.
in most situations. That you can get something like this without, kind of hamstringing yourself to a position where you're, maybe you're not actually taking a charge action, but you can lengthen your move a bit and then, make your your actual attack action a stronger attack. But if you're a melee class who's not using your action to attack, I feel like you're hindering yourself by only making 1 attack per turn, unless you're a rogue, where that's sort of how it's built. But here you're not able to really dual wield super effectively either. And the sharpshooter and whatever the great weapon one is,
Great weapon master.
yeah, they don't mesh well here. So if you're a big 2-handed person, you're gonna have to sort of choose between one or the other.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'd say 2 out of 5. It's a very cool aesthetic that I think they could have done better with the mechanics on.
So that
Something to
leaves.
think about.
Oh, sorry.
go ahead.
Go on, Kyle. No. I was just gonna end and
Well,
continue.
looking at the Charger, what you're getting there for most characters will have about 30 feet of movement, right, give or take. So you're giving up a third of your movement for a guaranteed +5 damage, which is great. But if you compare that to like Great Weapon Master, where you're gaining a +10 to your damage at a cost of -5 to your hit, Charger actually comes
That's
out to
fair.
be pretty good early
That's
on.
a fair point, especially early on. You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Early, it is much stronger. That is a good point. And the damage bonus without taking the penalty to attack that's significant. That's fair.
+5
That-
damage is enough to kill a goblin outright. I mean,
Right.
Yeah, and if it's fleeing and faster than you, this is a way to catch it and hit it.
yeah.
That's another good point. Yeah. No, there's more utility to it than I'm probably giving it credit for. I do think that they could have maybe done something more with the action economy on it to
Oh yeah.
I think the
let
shove
you
should
take an
knock
attack
down.
action.
Yeah.
That'd be a good way to do it. If you can't shove people prone, I think.
This one
So
doesn't. It just says shove away from you,
Yeah,
10 feet away. Whereas Bull Rush would knock them prone as well. This one
you're
doesn't.
right. It doesn't say. It does specific up to 10 feet away from you. Well, okay.
10 feet down.
Well,
Up
it's so
to.
yeah. So
you can
it's
still
built-
always shove prone. So it's just saying if you wanted to push them a distance, the distance is increased to 10. But it's not saying that you can't. It's not limiting you. I don't think the way I read that from
Right.
doing the normal shove.
I feel that it's
action.
translated from charge and bull rush
Right.
put
totally.
together, and then it was like, you roll so much over their defense for the grapple, and then they go that far and knock down. So I think they just kind of
Mushed it. Okay.
yeah.
Well, that does leave us with a 2.5 out of 5 for Charger, which is our lowest scoring feat so far. But there are worse feats. Oh boy, there are worse feats. But Crossbow Expert, the next one is not one of the worst ones. Thanks to extensive practice with the crossbow, you gain the following benefits. You ignore the loading proficiency of crossbows with which you are proficient. Being within 5 feet of a hostile creature doesn't impose disadvantage on your ranged attack rolls. And when you use the attack action and attack with one-handed weapon, you can use a bonus action to attack with a hand crossbow you are holding. So that's cool.
Cortex. Starting with you.
So wait, if you ignore the loading property, but then you have the bonus action of firing the hand crossbow, does your hand crossbow become unlimited ammo?
At least you don't have to reload it anymore. So you still have to use your ammo counter.
The other attack still has to be one-handed weapon.
So you got the arrows in your
effectively
backpack.
you stop worrying about
and you fire.
Yeah.
and then it just
And then they're
it's
in
in
there
there.
again.
Yep. It is.
Or you're doing some sort of like, I don't know, hip loading nonsense. Like you've got nice, it's like bolts around your waist, like those change dispenser belt thingies or something.
Yeah.
And you
I
just
like
like
the
slap it
idea
in
that
there.
you're just
and
like
I don't
holding a
know.
fistful of bolts around the dagger that you just attacked with, and you're just like throwing one of them into the chamber as you're firing your crossbow because you just have it dry, like locked all the time. You just drop it into the chamber and
Some
fire.
sort of.
Yeah, that's don't do
I
that to your crossbows,
usually.
guys. Don't store
It's
them with
bad.
the
It's bad.
drawn. It's very bad on the it'll snap. Don't do that. So
I feel that this it's very clear that like this was before guns, right? And they've
yeah,
added
Right.
guns in UA. This it feels like it's kind of trying to help out halflings, people who are
Yes.
using smaller weapons who
yeah.
don't do as much damage, and the action economy of having to reload a crossbow. I mean, I think that it certainly takes, if you are trying to already, hinder yourself from the get go by choosing this. This is a good way to bring yourself back up to fit, because that's really what it is. If you're using a hand crossbow and a one handed, it's already got to be a finesse or light weapon, so you can do that.
Or another
So
hand crossbow.
Yeah,
Or
that's what I was
another-
gonna say.
yeah,
Wait to get to my turn.
Yeah.
yeah, and I
Right.
mean, you're just right. Yeah, I'll give it a 4.
Okay,
All
four
right.
4 out of 5. All right, all right, all right. I am gonna have to give it a 4 out of 5 too, just because I do love the idea of a fistful of bolts, but it does make crossbows uh much more useful because really, and also this is something that I do see a lot of DMs ignore is the loading times on crossbows because they're not bows. It does take an action to load a crossbow. And if your DM isn't making that a necessity, if he's just letting you crack off a shot with your crossbow every turn, this feat is going to be much less useful.
For
But
sure.
if they are abiding by the reload, this makes it worth it to use two-hand crossbows, because if you like two-hand crossbows, you're attacking, once every 2 turns, and that's or once every 3 turns if you're trying to reload both hand crossbows. But otherwise,
It's not exactly how. So loading's a little different. I think you have to spend.
you have to spend your action, right?
I don't think
I
you
think you
spend
get
your
a
action to
bonus
do it.
action once you're proficient.
I can't remember exactly. I'm gonna pull it up here, but I'm
Yep.
trying to remember. I think it just limits you per action that you take to attack, and then it's just you're considered loaded again, essentially.
Oh no, it's actually
Yeah,
no,
it's
no, no,
the
no.
object interaction.
Because the time required to
thing.
load this weapon, you can fire only one piece of ammunition from it when you use an action, bonus action, or reaction to fire it, regardless of the number of attacks you can normally make. So you can
Right. So it limits you to the action.
but with this, you can fire your crossbow more than
Mhm.
once a turn.
Yeah, if you have multi-attack, for example,
Yes.
or extra attack, whatever, and you use
Yes.
crossbow, you don't get to benefit
don't
from
get to
that,
benefit.
essentially, unless you have this.
Yes.
Which is essentially what they're trying to do away with here. I think that the easier way to explain stuff like this than some sort of like, amazing technical prowess with the
Right.
crossbow is like a lever action crossbow
Yeah.
or some sort of clip system or whatever. But it just, I guess the idea is that it turns it into a simpler action for you to engage with the crossbow and to allow halflings to use a d8 on ranged weapons. And then also, so the reason that you might not necessarily need this and still use a crossbow, though, if you're a rogue, you only attack once per turn anyway. So
Right.
you don't, you'd rather have the d10, and it, doesn't hurt you any that it's loading, unless you take feats where you're trying to attack with other stuff. But
Right. So I think I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5 as well, just because it's neat.
Sorry,
and I like it.
cutting in on your turn here.
Kyle.
Oh man, this is the Devil May Cry feat. This is Dante. This is your dual hand crossbow or your sword and crossbow. This is to get up in the enemy's face and fire and pull the trigger. I love this feat. Easily 4 out of 5. I'd
All
give
right.
it 5 out of 5, but it's still very combat focused.
Mm-hmm.
Not a lot of flavor to it. But the cool factor. I mean, that's enough.
It
4 out
is.
of 5.
Right.
Yeah, I think I will also go with the 4 here because it's really strong in combat. The ability to ignore like disadvantage on range attacks within 5 feet. Um, like that doesn't just limit. That's not just crossbows. Like that's every ranged attack. You can your ranged attack rolls are spell attacks too. So that's like a really strong thing to have. And then the whole being able to shoot with the offhand, dual wielding with a hand crossbow essentially is pretty cool. Making that like a functional build for your character is like an awesome concept, and I think crossbows are cool. So I'm a fan, and I also love to put bayonets on the end of crossbows, so that instead of shooting you from 5 feet away, they're just like gutting you with
Stabbing.
and it's like it's just a pike without reach or something, essentially. Then
Right.
like, and like. So that's I like the feat. I think there's potential for it to actually include some character stuff, but it is pretty much like you've got to be a ranged build, and it's not really super useful if you're trying to do a ton of other stuff with it. Although you could just give a fighter a heavy crossbow and
Right.
go the hell to town, and use that as your two-handed weapon, and say to hell with it, pole arm mastery. I'm gonna get sharpshooter or something.
Blow people with crossbows.
And have like full plate and just walk around. I actually kind of like that concept now. Yeah.
All right. Well, it is
Anyway,
about 11:30,
it
so we are
is.
going to take a quick break and then come back for probably 1 or 2 more feats. I'm going to give the
how many we
spiel.
can knock out here.
So this has been an
Yeah.
Irrational Radio production. We do a bunch of other stuff, including a podcast called Dragons of Paralandia. You can find on Podbean, Spotify, iTunes, and many, many other places. We also do a bi-weekly stream called Gods of Aether that you can catch every other Monday, which is, in a few Mondays? It was last Monday, so it's going to be in a half from now, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
We also do this. This is cool. This is Table 13. We do DM stuff, but if you seen that, then
Thursday.
Every Thursday. If you really enjoy what we do, we have Patreon and a merch shop on our website. If you want to check that out, you can find the link below. And if you want to hang out with us and spend some personal quality time, we have a Discord. So that's what you're missing out if you're not part of the Discord, because we're in there all the time. We answer personal questions. We give personal details out and
do actually
generally just have a
Radio
really
after
good time.
dark.
Yes, after dark.
And we run games there.
we
Yeah.
also do that. Yeah.
There's occasionally some D&D played
some
in
D&D
that
happens
server.
in that server. Yeah. So if you're looking
That's a
for a
good point.
game or a group of people to chat about DM or DMing or role playing in general, hit us up. But we are going to take a break. We'll be back in 10 to 15 minutes, depending on how fast it takes us in the bathroom. All right. Be back. Goodbye. And we're back for the last 15 minutes of the feat discussion, and not like the thing that some people are into.
That sounds
on the
real
internet.
bad, actually.
Yeah, it's not. We're
Hey,
not.
you know what?
Yep.
You do you.
Right? If that's what you're
15
into.
minutes of
Parties
feet
and
sounds
all
like a
that.
fetish video.
But this is, if you're
Yeah.
tuning in for
I'm a
15
go.
minutes of feet, this is the wrong place. You're not in
That's
the right
Quentin
place.
Tarantino.
This is Feats, 5e, D&D, special abilities you get
D&D.
instead of ability score increases at certain points during your character. We have made it all the way to Crossbow Expert, where we give it a very healthy, respectable 4 corncobs out of 5. The next feat in the list is defensive.
So I just want to point
duelist.
out.
Oh, go on. No.
We are about to make it to our 7th feat in
7 feet.
an hour and a half.
Yes, well, we knew this. Yeah,
Defensive duelist.
We had a lot of talking before.
Right. We had to
That's
get
right.
the
That's right. You're
groundwork
right.
down.
You're right.
Yeah.
More like an
come on.
hour then, maybe.
Yeah, an hour,
Still.
which is pretty good.
No,
Like 10 minutes
each.
a
That's
feat.
pretty reasonable.
Yeah, come on.
I'm
I'm not trying to
daylight
zip
here. I
through these
apologize.
and not give
So
them the
it's-
due expertise that they deserve. So, defensive duelist. Prerequisite for this is you need to have a dexterity of 13 or higher. You can add your proficiency bonus to your AC if you're wielding a finesse weapon. There is a little bit more than that.
It's only against it's so if a creature hits you with a melee attack, you can sort
Right.
of spend your reaction.
Yes.
No.
Yep, yes.
Yeah, you spend your
this is from the
reaction to
book.
give yourself a
Yep.
bonus to your AC equal
Your
to your proficiency bonus.
Yep.
So it's sort of a parry kind of a concept.
Basically.
And anyway, sorry. So
Cortex.
yeah, since I
I like the feat. My question with these feats that have prerequisites of you having a stat score is
Mhm.
there are, as they give the example in with grappling, having you have to have 13 or higher. If you get something like withering that brings your strength below that, you can no longer use that feat anymore. If you've got something that brings you below the prereq, that feat's no longer good anymore. However, this is one of those feats that you get early on, and it's good early on, but then it gets better as your proficiency bonus goes up because
Yeah.
you're essentially flying up with your AC to be able to get out of being attacked. So I mean, it's a very solid feat for any fighter or anyone who expects to get hit, and it's a solid feat for someone who doesn't expect to get hit and has that 13 dex to be able to just throw their proficiency bonus into their AC with them being light targets. So I would definitely give it a 5.
All right.
With just it works for everybody. It can be countered if you're putting someone, I mean, flat-footed isn't a thing here, but if you're putting someone below that dexterity 13 and then they lose the ability to use that feat, they're
or
probably in
ranged
over their
attacks
heads
or
anyway.
something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it is very strong, that's for
Respectable
sure.
5 corncobs out of 5 from
5,
Cortex.
solid full 5.
I'm
That's
gonna
what's up.
say 4 out of 5, and my reasoning is that it is slightly limited in that you have to wield a finesse weapon. And so if you're not proficient with any finesse weapons, you're not going to be able to use this feat. And there are some classes that you're just not proficient unless you go outside and do a little bit more work. And then I've had a lot of creatures with parry, bandit captains and whatnot, and the like parry, the skill that NPCs get just gives them a +2 to their AC, and this scales with your uh, um, proficiency bonus. I still do sometimes feel like if you get hit really hard, this isn't worth it. And I kind of feel the same way with parry, really. Like, the times you really need it are going to be the times when you're, like, really outclassed, and they're going to beat you by more than that anyway. Beat your AC by more than that anyway. But that's pretty weak sauce argument for, like, a weakness of the feat, because it is also useful in all the times they hit close to your AC, go by over it by 3 or 4 points. So that's why I'm giving it a 4 or 5, but I'm not
Very good.
5 out of 5.
Strong cobs.
Strong cops.
Strong
All
cobs.
right, Kyle.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna go with a 4 as well.
Okay.
It is a great feat for someone who would, when the DM says, "All right, I'm gonna roll for hit," and just like, no, I mean, good luck. Especially if you're a fighter or someone who gets heavy armor, like right off the bat, you get a hold of some plate, and then by the time you get to 20th level, I mean, you're looking at like 25, 26 AC, which is ridiculous. You're almost impossible to hit. But that's not the only way of taking damage. You got saving throws. You
Right.
got your fireballs.
Yep.
And it's only melee attacks,
And
that
it's
you
only
can
melee,
use this on too. So
Yep.
it doesn't make you
Um,
invincible, but it
doesn't make
definitely
you
makes you
invincible.
hard to melee with. Which
If you want to be a
sorry.
tank, if you want to roleplay a tank in D&D, this is a fantastic feat for it.
Yeah.
I was gonna say that is the how many cops?
4.
4 out of
4
5.
cops. You did say that
He
already.
did.
my
Yep.
bad. So I think that this will be a 5 cops for me.
All right.
Because I think that honestly, while it's a very powerful like mechanical benefit, it actually does add something to the way your character is fighting a bit. There is a bit of a narrative value to this feat. It's not just, you do more damage on this hit because you swing it harder. It's sort of like, you are sort of, like a Zorro type swordsman, or, whatever, Three Musketeers, something along those lines, where you've got this, kind of expert skill that you can use to just overpower other people who are trying to engage you in melee combat. And I think that's a cool concept. And then, yeah, mechanically, like, you're trying to do a full plate warrior, you get yourself a rapier, and you can attack with strength still. It's a finesse weapon. It doesn't say you have to use dexterity for it. And then, you can just be this, like, impossible to touch, whatever Polnareff's dude is.
Yeah.
in
Armor so
JoJo.
gleams because no one can land a hit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Just ting, 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 ting. Like, woof. That's a cool character. I think Gra has defensive duelist too. So
Yeah.
it's really strong to be able to give yourself a shield type ability as a tank type character, or as a swashbuckler who doesn't want to get hit in melee, but you need to be a striker and kind of move in and out. And occasionally get yourself tagged every once in a while. The ability to say, this time I'm not getting tagged, or, you use your uncanny dodge on one and then or something,
Right,
what I
yeah.
mean? Like you've got another tool in your box that you can get out of damage with, basically.
Well, that leaves us with a pretty respectable 4.5 cobs out of 5.
Yeah.
So that's pretty
solid,
good.
solid feat rating so far.
So the next one is another race-based feat. It is Dragon Fear. You need to be a Dragonborn to use this. You get a +1 in strength, con, or charisma, and your breath weapon can frighten instead of inflicting damage. I don't have the exact. Does anyone have the?
So it does.
straight up ruling?
Yeah. So you can expend a use of your breath weapon trait to roar, forcing each creature of your choice within 30 feet. Which actually, each creature of your choice is pretty nice. To make a Wisdom saving throw of DC 8 plus your proficiency bonus plus your charisma modifier, which is actually okay. So that's just like if you're a bard or something, this could be a really powerful.
Dragonborn sorcerer.
Yeah, sorcerer. Like you could you're gonna have a decent save on that, and wisdom's a good one to go against for a lot of targets. The target automatically succeeds the save if they can't see or hear you, but on a failed save, they become frightened of you for 1 minute. And each time they take any damage, they can repeat the saving throw, ending the save for on a success.
Nice.
So, and then I don't, like that's pretty solid. I'm pretty sure frightened is like you can't move. Yeah, you can't move closer to the source of your fear, and disadvantage on attack rolls and ability checks whenever they're in sight. So that's actually fairly strong.
So what do you think, Cortex?
I love it. Played a Dragonborn sorcerer. This was a feat I was looking at just because as a Dragonborn, it gives you a lot. Any of the feats that really have the prerequisite of a race are pretty strong. I think there's another one. Is this the same one that gives you advantage on charisma checks with actual dragons?
No,
Is that a
that
different one?
is maybe Dragonhide or something. Yeah, it's another. I think that's a different one.
Yeah, it's different.
Yeah, I love the being able to lean into being a Dragonborn.
Yeah.
I hate to do it again, but I'm gonna give it a 5. I really love this feat.
5 out of 5. I'm gonna give it a 3 out of 5, because it is tied to being a Dragonborn. It doesn't. It still costs a breath weapon slot to use it, and the Dragonborn's breath weapon is really the only good thing about the race. Like everything else is pretty like mashed potatoes.
I'd say the resistance is the best part, but that's just me.
Well, it's either that or the resistance, but
Natural armor.
Well,
do they get natural armor?
they don't get natural armor.
I didn't think they did.
No, yeah, it's
because they don't get
Dragon
enough.
hide.
Oh, that's
gives you
That's a
That's the next
sorcerer.
feat.
Sorry,
Yep.
Draconic.
Oh, dragon. Yeah, the
Yeah.
draconic.
Yeah, Dragonborn
bloodline
sorcerer.
sorcerer
Yeah.
does get
Yeah.
like a 13 plus AC or something like that.
So, and while the the DC 8 plus your proficiency plus your charisma is good, it really is only good if you're playing a dragonborn bard or sorcerer. And so it's good, but in a very, very niche situation, or very, very niche character, not situation. It's good in all kinds of situations as long as it's actually like worthwhile. But if your charisma modifier is like a 1 and you're level 3, it's going to be like a DC 12 wisdom save, and unless you might be able to frighten
Use
away
it on
half
some
the
giants
goblins
or something.
But yeah,
there's some. It's wisdom's. Sorry. Anyway, your turn.
Yeah.
I apologize.
It's not terrible, but it is 3 out of 5 for me. So Kyle.
Yeah, I agree. There are some limitations, and I've got nothing against Dragonborn. That being said, I'm gonna give it a 4 out of 5
Okay.
because I think, despite the being limited to having a higher charisma for it to be more effective, the fact still remains it is a 30-foot aura frighten on an unlimited potentially number of targets.
Okay.
And need to say here, frightened is not only prevents you from getting closer, but it also gives you a disadvantage on ability checks and attack rolls while they can see you. That is huge.
Yeah.
It is big. That is definitely true. Yeah. How many cops?
4.
4 out of 5. Yep.
Four. I think you said that earlier too.
You did. I
keep
wrote it
fucking
down.
Doing that. Sorry.
So mystery.
All right. I'm gonna say 3 as well because you have to play Dragonborn to get it.
Yeah,
it would be high, like and that's just because they're just so unfairly shat upon. I think as a race, they don't even get dark vision, and like it's just the resistance, and your resistance is only as good as basically your breath weapon is bad, because the more common you take for one damage type, the less the less effective the other is, and vice versa. If you take a rare damage type for your breath weapon, then your resistance is less useful. So while I think that's a really nice balance, they could have thrown 1 or 2 more things on there. The other thing that's really nice about this feat, though, is actually it's one of the few that you get more than 2 choices for stats. And it's you get strength, con, or charisma to increase by 1, which there are going to be very few characters who don't have an odd stat in one of those. So I think that's but again, you got to play Dragonborn to get it. And there's like, if you're going to pick a race, I think there are racial abilities that you're going to use more than your breath weapon, like Kyron's saying, unless you're a charisma build specifically. You're not going to have a great save on this, and unless you're targeting specifically low wisdom targets, you're going to have a rough time making it stick. But like Kyle was saying, Frightened's really big, so if you get it to stick on 2 people, that's 2 people who are basically ineffective in combat now. So
for a minute.
Yeah, or at least until they save or whatever.
Yeah.
But they're so they got to get hit by damage too, so they don't repeat the saving throw at the end of each turn. Yeah. It's a good feat.
Well, that's how many comps?
I said 3. Ha.
3. Ah, damn it, I missed it. Yep. All right.
It's all coming together. Not the only one not paying attention. Well, we're after midnight here.
Yep, it is. I was going to say that's a respectable 3.75 out of 5. Cobbs. We got through what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 feats out of the list of 60. So this will be a mine that we will come back to. I know that we also still have the skills list to finish up as well.
No,
so
we finished that off.
Oh, you guys did. That's right. That's right.
Like
I
9
wasn't
or 10.
Yep.
Without you.
Yep. Without me. Yeah. Right. I missed that. But I will be around hopefully for our finishing up of the feat list. So again, this has been Irrational Radio. Join our Discord if you want to hang out with us. Come back on Thursday nights and take part in the shenanigans. Next week, I'm not sure what we're doing, but we will be here. So just check it out. We'll post that on our Twitter and Facebook pages when we figure out what we're doing. So good night, everybody. Wear a mask. Stay safe out there. And have a good night. Bye.
Bye.